Lesson 48 is understanding complex fractions. Now what we have here is we have a whole bunch of fractions here. If you look at our very first one, we've got two fractions on the top. You could say we've got two fractions on the bottom also. Okay, what I would tell you to do, get these top two fractions into one first. So we need common denominators here. So we need a common denominator of 10. Alright, last one doesn't change. First one we've got to multiply by 2, and that becomes 7 over 10. Our bottom one is, let's see, common denominator of 8, so we've got to multiply the first one by 8, so that's a 32. Alright, so then we've got 7/10 divided by 35 over 8. Now we cannot, that we're down to one fraction on top, one fraction on bottom, this is like 7/10 divided by 35/8. Okay, we can't divide fractions, but we can multiply by the reciprocal. Alright, so we end up with this fraction. Now, what some of you could do is you'd say, well, that's 56 over 350. Well, I don't want to reduce at the end, those numbers get pretty big. I could take a 7 out of both of these, that becomes a 1, that's a 5. Take a 2 out of this, and out of that, and this becomes 4 over 25. And that's simplified. Alright, now, if it has variables in it, you do the exact same thing. Okay, two fractions on top, we have a common denominator of AB. We need to multiply this one by b over b, so 3 times b is 3b. Okay, the other one, we have to multiply by a over a to get that common denominator of ab, so this becomes 1 times a, or just a. Over, our common denominator here is going to be a squared. Well, our 4, we're going to take times a squared over a squared. So we've got a 4a squared. This last one, we've already got an a squared here, so we don't have to do anything with it. So that's just minus, minus 2. So then we've got a fraction divided by another fraction multiplied by the reciprocal. So 3b plus a over ab times a squared over 4a squared minus 2. Now the only thing that we can do here, we cannot cross off this a and this a because these are in parentheses because of that plus sign and that minus sign. Alright, those aren't the same, we can't do anything to make them the same, but we do have this a that's being multiplied by this b, so we can cross off that a and cross off one of these a's up here, and we are left with a times 3b plus a over b times 4a squared minus 2. Now you could multiply those through if you wanted to, but you don't have to because that would be the exact same answer whether you run it through or you don't. Alright, next one, we do the exact same thing. Now our common denominator, if we had 2/5 times 1/4, what most of you would do is you would just multiply those two together and get 20. And that is totally fine, that's what we need to do here. You are not multiplying this one by x and this one by a plus 2 to get those the same. These have nothing in common with each other. So our common denominator is going to be x squared times x plus 2. Now the other thing I will tell you is do not multiply those together yet, because in the end you'll have to factor them apart to be able to see if you can simplify these. Alright, if that's our common denominator, we need to multiply this one by x squared over x squared. So x squared times 1 is x squared. This one over here, to make this the same as that, we've got to multiply by x plus 2 over x plus 2. Okay, that would give us a denominator. The top, now I just said don't multiply these together, That only works for the denominators. For the numerators, you have to multiply them together. So we've got to take 5 times x, so that's 5x. 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, for the bottom, we don't have anything to do, it's just one fraction already. So then, fraction divided by fraction, we take the first fraction and multiply by the reciprocal. So we're taking it times x plus 2 over 3x. Alright, now we can see, well, that x plus 2 is going to cancel with that x plus 2. Alright, so that's good. Is there anything else we can do? Sometimes we have to check and see if this can be simplified. Okay, in this case it can't, so we're good. Do remember though, that x squared and that x squared cannot be simplified. Alright, because those are all being added together, those are in parentheses. So our answer is x squared plus 5x plus 10 over 3x times x squared would be a 3x cubed. And that is fully simplified for that problem there. Alright, and that is it. Just remember, common denominators. Make 2 fractions into 1 first. And then, once you get 1 fraction on top, 1 fraction on bottom, multiply by the reciprocal. And that is it for these. Any questions? Let me know.